Kenton Craig Haggard was a newly transgender woman in Fresno, California, and during the early morning hours of July 23, 2015, while walking on the sidewalk, a tan SUV pulled up behind her and called her over to the car. Haggard then approached the car and leaned over the passenger side window and spoke with the unknown individuals in the car for a few minutes. Then out of nowhere, the person in the passenger seat suddenly stabs Haggard in the neck. The SUV took off and Haggard staggered away on the street before finally collapsing. Unfortunately, Haggard later died in the hospital, and to this day, the police still do not have any suspects in custody. Around 6:20 p.m. on October 21, 2013, 25-year-old Deshaun Walker walked out of a food mart in Rockford, Illinois. He was then confronted by two men who had been dropped off in the parking lot by an unknown person shortly after Walker entered the store. When Walker went to get in the passenger seat of his girlfriend's car, one of the men pulled out a gun and pointed it at Walker's head. Walker attacked the man and a short scuffle ensued and they both fell to the ground behind the car. The other man fired 2 shots at Walker, striking him both times. During the scuffle, Walker's girlfriend backed the car up and the gunman fired a shot into the car. Luckily, the bullet missed both the girlfriend and Walker's young son in the back seat. After almost being shot, Walker's girlfriend fled from the scene and Walker was rushed to the hospital, but unfortunately died an hour later. On the night of March 26, 2011, 40-year-old tattoo artist Daniel Vela was working at the Pretty and Ink Tattoo Parlor in West Ryde, Australia. At about 9:45 p.m., 2 men in hooded sweatshirts walked in the back door of the shop. One of the men walked up to Vela, pulled a gun and shot Vela point blank in the shoulder without saying a word. Vela wrapped a t-shirt around his arm and ran out to the street where the ambulance found him, but he died en route to the hospital. The police believe that the suspects were involved with an Australian outlaw motorcycle club, and the murder was an attempt at intimidation. But despite the video, nothing concrete has been found and the killer still remains at large. On April 23, 2011, 24-year-old Trayvon Wayne, who lived in South Carolina, was visiting family in Brooklyn, New York. At around 7:45 p.m., Wayne was talking on his cell phone while he waited outside his cousin's restaurant for a ride. Moments later, a man approached Wayne, pulled a gun and fired 2 shots from point-blank range. Witnesses called 911 and Wayne was taken to the hospital, but tragically he passed away from his injuries. It's believed that Wayne was killed over a case of mistaken identity, and the random nature of the crime has made it a difficult crime to solve. On April 24, 2011, 69-year-old psychologist Emmett Belton and an unknown man were caught on video arriving at his apartment building in Phoenix, Arizona. They got onto the elevator and went into his room, and 2 hours later, the unidentified man calmly left the apartment and stole Belton's car in view of the camera. Belton, who was badly beaten and had suffered a head wound, made it to the hallway where he got a neighbor to call 911. When the police arrived, Belton was still conscious and he had told them that he had picked the man up from a homeless shelter, but he later died from his injuries. And even though the murderer was caught on camera for 45 seconds from 3 different angles, the man has still never been identified.